Hello everyone, welcome to another HCF video. I'm here with Stan, and this is part 2 of the Colt service revolvers. So Stan, take it away.
Okay. In the 20th century, most departments are either Colt departments or Smith & Wesson departments. And the 6-shot blue frame fixed sight revolver was the standard issue in most. The department I was on was a Colt department, and I'll get into that. Teddy Roosevelt, when he was police commissioner, decided that police needed to have standardized firearms and standardized training. And he picked the Colt police pistol that was made in .32 caliber. Now, you and I might say, .32 caliber. It lacked stopping power, but it definitely, thanks to the level of medicine in those days, had killing power, all right? And it was a common enough cartridge carried by both good guys and bad guys. And after he left the department, become Undersecretary of the Navy and other things, Governor of New York and President, Vice President and President, Colt came out with this gun right here. And it's called Police Positive. Now, this one here happens to be nickel-plated. When I was on the department, we were warned, chrome equals criminal. If you were off duty and you pulled out a shiny gun here in the Northeast, it was assumed you were a bad guy. And especially dangerous if you were a police officer of color to whip out a nickel-plated gun. But in some parts of the country, they preferred nickel plate. They felt it resisted corrosion better. But in the Northeast part, now this particular gun I know was used by the auxiliary police in a town in New Jersey. And it's the same model that was used to try to assassinate Teddy Roosevelt. He got shot in the chest by a nickel-plated Colt Police Positive. And as it was, he survived. Not only did the bullet go through his winter coat, through his speech, through his spectacle case, and into his chest, he was able to still give an hour-and-a-half speech before he went to the hospital, and needless to say, he survived. Well, people were starting to realize, okay, they went from 32 to 38 Smith & Wesson, although Colt called the cartridge the 38 Colt New Police. The same cartridge. But the Special was definitely taking over. So the next gun Colt made was right here. It's the Police Positive Special. And the Police Positive Special was a light frame, but you can see it had a longer cylinder, so it required a longer frame. And it was a very popular police gun. And even bad guys. One of the few documented guns that Al Capone owned and that went to auction was a 5-inch Police Positive Special that was documented as belonging to Alfonso Capone. Now, the holsters up here, both these holsters come for these guns. And this one here, if you can see the markings. Okay, these are known as Audley holsters. That was the original patent. The story that was going around was, and I'm going to show you, you put the gun in, and there's a metal clip right in here. You can barely see it, okay? Now, as I put the gun in, that locks it in, if done right, okay? Now it's going to fight me today. And, oops, I know what I did wrong. There it is, you can hear it click. The story was that the police carried guns with a secret button that only they knew about, so if somebody snuck up behind the cop and tried to grab his gun, he wouldn't be able to, because you had to know the secret, which was to stick your trigger finger in there, push down on the Audley, yank it out, all right? Now, you're going to say, but that means you're putting your finger on the trigger. Yes. And I'll tell you right now, the police department I was on, that was the issue holster. And we had one with the bottom blown out. Why? Because some guy practicing fast draw managed to shoot himself in the leg. And when you went to the police academy, if you showed up with one of these, they told you, no way. So what do you think? You think somebody in the department would have realized this is an unsafe design? No. You know what they did? They bought one holster, thumb snap, and when you went to the academy, you got issued the thumb snap holster. When you got back from the academy, you got issued an Audley. Okay, and here's another Audley made by the JP company, and it's made for the Police Positive. All right? Which again was been around for a long time. The Police Positive's biggest contribution was they made it into a 2-inch and it became the Detective Special. Colt thought they had an attempt to make it to sell guns to the U.S. Army, so they created a gun they called the Army Special. and it was 38 Smith & Wesson, and the goal, of course, was that the Army would buy these. Well, the Army was dissatisfied with the Colt New Army, New Navy, but in 1909, rather than buy this gun, they bought the new Service in 45 long Colt. After a while, Colt realized that most of their customers were police departments. I think the only army that ever bought these was the Greek army, and they bought like 3,000 or 4,000, and they were shipped overseas. So in a very smart marketing move, what Colt did is they fixed up the finish, they changed the grips, they made the sights better, and they renamed the gun the Official Police. And the serial number range for the Army Special ends and continues into the Official Police, which is the gun that I carried. This is not the one I carried, this is my own. But the Official Police was the carry gun in my department. It was also popular with the FBI, the Border Patrol, and many others, and became one of the icons, okay? Now, what I want you to understand is in the 1970s, there was a lot of complaints about maybe the revolver, it was time to retire the revolver. And there was an incident in California called the Newhall Incident, in which 4 highway patrolmen were killed. And one of the stories that went around, and there's some question whether it really happened, was that some of the cops were found with empty shell casings in their pockets. Because in training, to keep the range clean, you would fire your 6 rounds, you would carry 50 rounds of wadcutter in the front pocket. You would unload your 6 shots that you fired, put them in your hand, put them in your back pocket, then reach into your front pocket and draw ammunition. And that under stress, people were reverting back to their training, and they were policing up the brass rather than reloading real fast from the drop boxes on their belt to shoot it out with the bad guys. Ammunition. The department I was on, 158 round nose, 38 special. The younger cops and others wanted to change to a hollow point. We were in an urban environment. And here's what happened. Remington UMC came out with a 38 plus P, 158 grain, semi-wad cutter hollow point. And the Detroit Police Department adopted it. So it became known as the Detroit load. Then Los Angeles adopted it, so it became known as the LA load. And then luckily for my department, the FBI decided to adopt it for their revolvers. And now we could go to the town council and go, we would like our our cops to be armed with the FBI load. And that sold them. Because before then, I don't know, we really want to have cops carrying dumb bullets. They're in violation of the Geneva Convention. As if criminals wear uniforms and follow the laws of land warfare. But the wheel gun was outliving its usefulness. And over here we got some more Colts. In the 1950s, Colt wanted to enter the .357 Magnum market, but they didn't want to mark their guns .357 Smith & Wesson caliber. So they named their gun the .357, and this is the .357. Notice the holster wear. That was worn by a deputy sheriff for over 20 years. And that'll do a job on a gun, okay? Next to it is, well, why can't all the cops have Pythons? Yeah, civilians who keep their Python in a nice little case, put it in a... You want to put that in and out of a holster, it's going to end up looking like that, okay? Yes, they're good guns, but they're also very expensive. Internally, these two guns are the same. Externally, there's high polish, everything else. It's going to cost you money, all right? And Colt, after a while, realized that they're not going to get much of the police market with Pythons, and they eventually went to the Trooper series, of which this is an example, where you could then have a .357 that maybe your department could afford to buy, or you as an individual. By the 1980s, everybody was trying to maximize ammunition. All you heard about was this super duper police load is the greatest thing in the world, boom, boom, boom. And then came the Miami Shootout in 1986, the FBI shootout. And by the 1990s, departments were dropping revolvers left and right. Everybody was going to semi-autos. The age of the wheel gun, basically, by 2000 was over. 21st century, wheel guns are out. I had to run a crime scene scenario, and I put a revolver like this on the scene with 4 dummy rounds to represent live rounds and 2 fired rounds. And a lot of the younger guys had no idea how to open a revolver. because they've been trained on automatics right from the start at the academy, everywhere else. To them, what do I do with this? They had no idea how to use the latch and open up the cylinder, because again, these have gone the way of the battleship. Okay, 21st century, it's going to be semi-autos. Now, in part 3, the revolver lived on a little longer in the form of the snub nose, and that'll be part 3 of our series. I thank you very much, HCF. I hope you like and subscribe.